Hey guys, so I'm gonna do a couple of things here for this flip lesson. I'll show you the APA citation for research articles for peer-reviewed research. I'll show you how to do the hanging indent. We'll kind of take a quick little tour again through the Moodle site as well as the Google Drive. You'll see that I've added a couple of things there. I'll show you how to do track changes on Google on a Word document. And then we'll do a couple of things in terms of searching for peer-reviewed articles, which you might wanna take a look at and want to be able to do. I'll also show you how to set up the Word document in APA style so that you can kind of make a skeleton for your portfolio now, so you won't have to worry about it later. And we'll start here right now. So this is the reference that we're working with, Ortega and Menchala's article. As you can see, the last name, comma, first initial, this is APA, followed by the ampersand, then the second author. If you have a long, so one thing that we didn't talk about in class is how to cite this in text. So let's say, for example, in the article, you know that the authors are talking about assessment as a critical component of English as a foreign language curriculum. That's the first sentence, right? So let's say, for example, you want to put that in quotations and use it. Currently, assessment is a critical component of English as a foreign language curriculum. Okay, which makes this an important source of inquiry for scholarship, since Maine has seen an influx of immigrant populations, right? So then what we would do, and that's if you're writing this in a narrative, right? So let's say, for example, you want to cite something or quote something in your responses to a virtual cheat sheet, on an online discussion board, or in general, maybe later on in a narrative. What you would do is you would write Ortega and Menchala, 2017. And then you would cite the page number since you're quoting it. So the page number here, it starts on page 159 and it's on the first page. So that's how you would cite it. Now, let's say, for example, you're not citing you're citing Ortega and Menchala, but you're paraphrasing, right? So let's say you're saying Ortega and Menchala mention the importance of assessment in English as a foreign language curriculum, right? That's paraphrased. Then all you would do is you would put in the date here, and there you go, there's your in-text citation. Same thing goes for if you say assessment in English as a foreign language curriculum is important. Let's say you're not using their names, Ortega and Menchala 2017, but you wouldn't have to put the page number there. So typically APA dictates that if you're citing something, a source, for example, and you're citing in a narrative, that one sentence is coming from that one source, the period would go after the in-text citation. And if, say, you have an entire paragraph paraphrased from the work, you would put the citation after the period, even though we wouldn't want to paraphrase an entire paragraph using one citation, right? That's usually not necessarily the best way of doing it. So this is the way that I would suggest you do it. Let's say probably a lot of people are saying that assessment in English as a foreign language curriculum is important. So if you wanted to cite more than one citation, what you would do is you would just put a semicolon here, and I'm just going to make something up, 2017 Miller, and making sure that, by the way, that these authors that you cite continually are in alphabetical order. Okay, so that's how you do in-text citations. I'm going to take that out. And then let's structure this in an APA format. So first, let's put a page break in so that we have, let's call this references, and we'll make sure that this is on a separate page. So we'll click on insert. I know that you might not see that, but I'm clicking on insert, I'm clicking on break, and then I'm clicking on page break, and it's going to move over to the next page. If you click on enter a bunch of times, what's going to happen is if you go back to edit that work, it might end up looking funky, like in the middle of the page like this. Okay, if you do a page break, it won't be affected if you say come in and add something later on into this document. So for the cover page, the first thing you'd want to do, let's start out, oh, and let me show you the hanging indent really quick. So to make the hanging indent, you would click on, you would right click, or if you have a Mac, you would click on Control click, you would click on paragraph, and then where it says special right here, you're going to click on hanging indent. Okay, so let me do that again and show you a quick little thing. So you might do that and it not do anything. That happens sometimes. That might mean that this part is not correctly set. Usually by default it's set as 0.5, but if you take a look at that and that number is not 0.5, just adjust it to 0.5 so that the hanging indent shows up. Okay, so let's go back here. We're going to move, I don't know why this isn't working, but let's move this into the middle. Let's say portfolio for literacy assessment. Okay. What we'll do is we'll center it in the middle of the page. What you'll do is you'll put your name and then Thomas College. And then there's your first page. That's the cover page for your work. Then you'll make another page indent. You'll move it to the left, and this is where you would put in your table of contents. So to make sure that you have the table of contents, you click on document elements, and then you have this function of putting in a table of contents. For those of you who are PC users, this will look a little bit different on your screen. If you don't know where it is, you can always, there's on PCs, it's a little question mark or a magnifying glass. On Macs, it's a little magnifying glass. You can look up table of contents, but usually it's in the area, the tab where it says document elements, and you'll be able to find one of these items will be table of contents. So let's click on table of contents. This is what it's going to show up as. Okay, so it says, well, Word didn't find any entries for your table of contents. What we want to do is we want to include a header so that this can get populated. So we'll click on Insert, Break, Page Break. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you're going to go back to Home, and where you can see Styles, this is an area, and for PC users, the styles will be kind of like a little bit to the left of this. And let's say I want to create, so what I did is I just pulled through, right now it's normal, so it's not going to populate into a table of contents. I would just move this into heading 1, and that way I can use header 1. Let's say this is where my virtual cheat sheet link, right? That could be one of your headers, and then as soon as I go to the next spot, I would just click on normal again and say, here is the link for my virtual cheat sheet on X topic. And then you would include URL link here, right? Okay, so let's go back to the table of contents. If I click on Update Table, now I see that my virtual cheat sheet, because I've used that first header, I will be able to see that on the table of contents. Now, if I have subheadings, then what you would do is on Styles, you would click on Heading 2, Subheading 1. So let's say, for example, your subheading Maybe you have a series of lesson plans that you wanted to include. You can say lesson plan 1, lesson plan 2, lesson plan 3 as your subheadings under the assessment field, the field assessment that you're going to do in this class. Now if I click here and update the table again, I'm going to click on update entire table, and I can see now that the subheading is there for the table of contents. So that's how, so one thing that you don't want to do for the table of contents is do it manually, where you're like clicking on this, on the period a bunch of times, like that, to get to a manual page link. So you don't want to do that. Okay, so you have your table of contents, so that's great. On OWL at Purdue, which is one of the places, so OWL at Purdue is a good place for APA citations if you want to take a look at that. I'll delete that. On OWL at Purdue, it'll tell you to add an abstract. That's really more for thesis work, so you don't necessarily have to worry about that for this portfolio. Okay, but there are a couple of things missing here. So the first thing that's missing is a header, an appropriate header and footer. So what you want to do is you want to first include a page number. It's going to go to the top of the page and aligned right. Okay, and then when I double click into this header, so all you have to do to access the header is double click. See how this is all shaded now? Okay, that's shaded because that's the Word document itself, and this is the header. So as soon as I double clicked, a new little tab popped up. What APA dictates is that our first page header on our cover page is different from the rest of the pages. So I'm going to click on that, and I have the option of changing it as a different first page. And this is what it looks like. Running head, portfolio. Okay, so the running head, so you literally type running head just like that with a colon, and then whatever the title of your document is, so maybe it's Katie Rybakova's portfolio, or teacher work sample, or whatever it is that you want it to be, portfolio for literacy assessment, doesn't really matter. But then you would tab over until you're right aligned and put in a 1 manually. Okay, so make sure that the portfolio is capitalized though. Okay, so once we click into the second page header, this is where we'll put in just the capitalized title. So if we can go down to page 3, we'll see that our header now is the same on each page. But our first page is essentially indicating that the running head is, here's the title of the document, and then you're going to keep on doing that from there. So that gives you a kind of an outline of how you can set up your portfolio. So your cover page is important, your table of contents. To populate your table of contents, you would utilize the styles in your Word document. And then, of course, you would eventually include references. Some of you might find that, oh, well, I have references in my lesson plans. Do I have to move all of my references to the very bottom of this one document? No, not necessarily. As long as you have the references listed here or throughout, it doesn't really matter. APA dictates that all of the references are at the end, but for this portfolio, I think it's okay if your citations are in the, like, let's say the one-pagers and et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so let's kind of do a quick little showcase of how to use the track changes. So if I click on review here, there are a couple of functionalities here. So let's say that I've submitted this to my instructor, right? And my instructor wants to track the changes. So maybe she has or he has suggestions for me. So I'm going to click on track changes. Now I will add my email here. See that it's in red. See also this line to the left, that means that there's something on that line that's track changed. So say for example if I click on it, oops, it's going to open up the mail, just kidding. If I, oh goodness. Okay, so so this line right here to the left indicates this that's what, because sometimes you'll have a sentence, right? And the track change is a period, and you might not see that red mark as clearly as you would if it's, this long. So that little line on the left will indicate whether there's some kind of change in terms of track changes. So this is something I'll utilize for feedback for you guys at some point. So say, for example, you write something here, and I'm like, oh, well, take this out. You'll have the track change. So you'll see my name as a comment on the right-hand side, and it'll say, I've deleted this. Or if I make a comment, what I'll do is I'll click on New, and it'll say comment here. This was a great video. Something like that. Okay, so you'll be able to see that feedback on the right. So let's say, for example, you open up your document and you see some hypothetical changes. Maybe there are edits, or maybe they're reworked sentences that expand on the concept. To accept that change, so that changes it back to the regular font and everything, what you would do is, there are two ways. First, you can just click on this and it'll highlight the next each change, right? So I can click on accept and see when I go back to this, now it's no longer in red. It's kind of like purpley because I clicked on it, okay? But if I hadn't clicked on it before, it would be blue like a regular email would be. You could also accept all changes by clicking on this little arrow. And if I click on accept all changes in document, now notice that all I have left on the right-hand side is, because I had deleted that little URL, put URL link here, now it's deleted as if it wasn't there in the first place. Only thing that's left are the comments. So the comments you can click out of, and notice that gray part that was there before is no longer there. So now this is the clean document, right? And then if I put another comment back in, notice now there's a gray area on the right-hand side. That's basically a document that's currently being edited. You can click through comments like this, or you can delete the comments. If you had comments, you'd be able to click on this little arrow right here and click on delete all comments if you wanted to do it quickly. So that's the review and the APA. We've done the hang and dent and the track changes. Let's open up our Google search and let's look at library services. So I'm sure you guys know how to utilize the library services link, but this is a good way of finding peer-reviewed research if you're looking for, let's say 2 years from now, you're looking for peer-reviewed research, more current peer-reviewed research on RTI, for example. What you would do is, let's use RTI as our keyword. And what you want to make sure that you click on is the full text option and the peer-reviewed option. So you want to be able to access both the entire document, not just like, say, the abstract, and make sure that it's peer-reviewed and not like a book or whatever. If you're offline, it'll ask you to log in. And this is what it will look like. Okay, so there are a couple of functionalities on here that are useful. So if you look at the publication date, I want something that's current. So I'm going to scroll this over to, let's say, 2000. Okay. So now I have a couple of options here. So I'm looking through this. Oh, that sounds not interesting to me because I'm not interested in the learning disability. I'm looking at RTI and whether or not it's effective, okay, or something that maybe for a middle school that's appropriate. So systematic sustainability and interventions doesn't sound really interesting. You know what also I'm looking at? I'm also looking at the journal article right here. And it's the same as this one. So Learning Disability Quarterly, that's probably about interventions for learning disabilities, and I'm thinking I want to look at a couple of other things, and I want to look at a middle school classroom in particular. So this next one is response to an expository writing strategy. across middle school RTI tiers. That sounds interesting. What I'll do is I'll right click on it so it opens in a new tab. That way I don't lose all of this. And then I have options of kind of reading through the abstract to see if this is interesting. Varying in their literacy skills from a suburban middle school. So it looks like this is an intervention. So it is an empirical work, meaning that there's some interesting stuff that I can do. And I look at it's a journal that also is focused on learning disabilities, but you know what? Because it's talking about middle school students and expository writing, that's something that I would be interested in looking at. So you can either click on the full text link here, or you can click on the PDF full document and it will send you to the full document here, and I'll be able to, read that and be able to cite it and whatnot. If for some reason you're like, oh, this is the best, this is current, it's published in 2017, and this is really interesting, and I really, really like this, I want more like this. One of the strategies that you can do is mine the bibliography. That's one of the strategies of finding good research. If you go down to the references, if you really like this article, chances are you'll probably like some of these articles. These are the articles that they're talking about. For us in the literacy assessment class, journals like Reading Research Quarterly are really interesting, and a good elementary school journal, Reading Research Quarterly, those are fairly strong journal venues, and academic journals that you can take a look at, and it'll be interesting to look at that. Voices from the Middle is another one that's really good. They won't necessarily focus as much on assessment all the time, but they have some really cool practical ideas, and they also have podcasts, which is great because you can literally listen to someone either being interviewed about their article or reading the article out loud, which is really helpful on long drives when you want to, catch up on your research. So that's how you look for peer-reviewed articles. If you guys, and I wanted to show you the Moodle site again. So, by the way, this is what Screencast-O-Matic looks like, and I'm using this right now as I'm recording. So this is what you'll use for your virtual cheat sheet. Okay, so let's look at our Moodle site. So, of course, the syllabus. I've added a couple of flip lessons. There's a screencasting tutorial. Of course, this tutorial will be on there as well. And then you have the Google Drive link, which I'll open in a second, and your discussions. So on our Google Drive link, this is what it looks like. I've added a couple of things there. Of course, the PowerPoint from the first day. I have the sign-up sheet as well. So that's if you forget one of the due dates, that's where all of the due dates are, where we signed it up. And this is the lesson plan template, so you can download it whenever you need to. So if you have any other questions or want me to review something in particular, then just send me a quick email, and I will get a flip lesson up and ready for you guys.